2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Interment will be at Mount Hope Cemetery. The family will gather tonight for Shiva at 6:30 to 9 p.m. at 369 Clover Hills Drive for friends to call. If you wish to further honor the memory of Audrey, Taxon, Marcus, you may do so by making contributions to the Food Bank of Central New York, Sarasota Orchestra, Temple Bethel, or the charity of your choice. הכל זמן ועת לכל חפץ תחת השמיים. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for planting and a time for reaping, a time for keeping and a time for discarding, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for embracing and a time for refraining, a time for slaying and a time for healing, a time for laughing and a time for weeping, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time to be silent, a time for seeking and a time for losing. Eshet Chayil mi imtza. What a precious find is a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband puts his confidence in her and lacks no good thing. She is good to him, never bad, all the days of her life. She opens the hand to the needy and extends her hand to the poor. She is clothed in strength and splendor. She looks to the future cheerfully. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. She oversees the activities of her household and never eats the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband praises her and says, "Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all." Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand. Wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. It's my honor now to call upon Elizabeth to speak.
Appreciate it. As most of you know, the Marcus clan can be very weepy public speakers, particularly when called to talk about family. So there was no way each one of us would have been able to share our thoughts without a complete breakdown. So what we spent the last few days doing is pooling our thoughts, and we wrote this all together. And so I'm going to attempt to share it with you. But trust us, we do have understudies in the wings. Audrey Taxon Marcus was our mother. We're all incredibly proud to say that. And we're all very grateful for it. She worked very hard at that role, as she worked hard at everything in her life. We have no memories of our mother not working hard. She was always in motion, always doing something. We called her the Energizer Bunny. We have very few memories of Mom when we were children sitting down except for a meal. She was the queen of the multitasked life. Armed with a great memory, her lists, and a desire to do things the right way, Mom threw incredible dinner parties with all the details planned out. And afterwards, she'd write the list of the guests on the back of the recipe card so as to never serve her friends the same thing twice. Throughout her life, Mom expertly juggled her work, her volunteer commitments, running a home, and juggled that with real care for her friends, children, and husband. Mom did not let balls drop. If she told you something was going to happen, it always happened. When we were attending school, Mom decided that taking care of the house didn't present enough of a challenge. She applied to be a realtor, passed her exam, and then spent the next 20 years selling homes in Syracuse, and she was really good at it. Mom was a great realtor because she was organized, knew the market, had a sharp memory for what was available, and understood pricing. But the main reason she was successful is because Mom loved meeting and getting to know people. She connected and built a rapport with people easily, understanding who they were and what kind of home they were seeking. She built and maintained trust with her clients and built lasting relationships like the one with the human resource people at General Electric in Syracuse, who would call her consistently to work with their executives who moved to town. Mom was a planner. Spontaneous was really not one of the choices. She planned everything in advance. There was a list for everything. 2 months before a holiday or birthday, she'd be asking for the list for gifts you might like. And a month before we'd go on family vacation, Mom was already planning what dinner we would eat for each night of the trip. A few weeks before each visit, Mom would ask for the grocery list. She wanted to know what to have in the house and what we wanted to eat each night. And her planning skills were well used as she and my father spent the first part of their retirement traveling the world. Mom loved spending time in other countries, experiencing the people and uniqueness of each place. They traveled to China, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong, and all over Europe. And before getting a place in Sarasota, they would spend time renting a condo in Maui when they weren't traveling. Mom loved puzzles, and in the days before the internet, realtors would have an index card for each house that was on the market. Black and white photograph on one side, and detailed information about the home on the other. Mom would sit at the dining room table for hours, sorting through the cards, arranging them in various stacks, and pulling aside ones that might be of interest to the clients she was working with. It was a big puzzle of people and index cards, and it would absorb her for hours each week. For Mom, grocery shopping was part puzzle, part sport, and part competition. We used to say she'd leave a store with them owing her money. She'd clip coupons, find the places that might double them on certain days, and map out her week according to when and where the best deals could be found. And inevitably, Sunday mornings meant a trip across town to a gas station where you could save 10 cents a gallon. And no matter how many times we questioned the logic of driving a long distance to save money on gas, it was her game, and she was going to win it. Like many children of the Great Depression, Mom hated waste and overpaying for anything. She would track the price of a flight online every day for weeks or months and proudly announce how much she saved when she bought it at a low price. It left a mark on all of us. To this day, when any of us find a deal on something, we sit and think to ourselves, wow, Mom would be so proud. Unfortunately, her facility with groceries and tickets did not always extend to her stock picks. The way she told the story, we could have made a fortune by buying the stocks the day before she sold, because inevitably the stock would rise and we'd hear exactly how much the price went up after she got rid of it. Mom enjoyed winning her games a lot more than losing them. And as anybody who has played Mahjong or other games with our mother knows, she always played to win. She loved strategy and competition of playing games, but mostly loved the camaraderie that came from playing games with her friends. Now, interestingly, none of us has any memory of playing many games with her when we were young and growing up. And when we sat and talked about it, our guess was that she knew her instincts would take over and she'd be trying to crush us in Candyland. Our father was always much more comfortable letting us win games. Mom's friends meant the world to her. She loved nothing more than arranging time out with friends, having dinner parties, and playing games with them. She kept her friends for life. And this week we've heard from numerous people who talked about their friendships that have lasted 70 years or more. She cared for her friends always by asking how she could help and remembering everyone's birthday. There was always a memo on her calendar as to when to send the cards so that her friends would receive a card on their birthday. She even had me bring one to the hospital last week so it would get in the mail on time, and it did. Mom's love language was acts of service and gift giving. On every Valentine's Day and Halloween, Mom would send candy or popcorn to her grandchildren and to Karen, who often delighted in those treats far more than the grandkids. And Mom always knew what to get for a gift, because if you mentioned you liked or needed something, it'd be filed away in her memory, and it would show up on the next occasion. And sometimes she didn't need an occasion at all. She'd send us something with the excuse it was for some long past forgotten birthday she didn't get you a present for. Except she never really forgot an occasion, so it was just a story she'd invent to get you something you wanted. And you often got stuff you didn't really need. Mom gave Bob a Tommy Bahama shirt for a birthday one year, which he liked and he wore. So for the next 6 or 7 Hanukkahs and birthdays, he received another Tommy Bahama shirt. Pretty much the same shirt in slightly different color. Or the margarita machine she gave my husband and I for an anniversary. And while calling to thank her, I made the mistake of doing it by speakerphone in the car. Maya, who was about 4 or 5 years old at the time, loudly interjected, "Mommy said, what the heck are we gonna do with that?" Life lesson. A habit picked up from her father, Mom bought enormous quantities of toilet paper. Karen would always return home to New York City with enough toilet paper for a zombie apocalypse. And Karen was just shocked during the early days of the pandemic to discover that anyone could ever run out of toilet paper. Being of service to others, to her family especially, was always on display. She was our Uber driver growing up, shuttling all 3 of us all over town, organizing carpools for Hebrew school, and our activities all day and night. None of us ever heard her complain about it. It's what we needed, and so she did it. And as our pictures were inevitably replaced by the pictures of the grandchildren, they could each count on their favorite things always being in stock in her home, whether jars of pickles and fluffernutter or their favorite ice cream treat. Maya, Lily, Vivian, and Nathan were her joy. If we were celebrating Passover at the club down in Sarasota, Mom would proudly march them all over the room so her friends could meet and fell over her grandchildren. And when they were together, Mom would ask questions of each of her grandchildren, wanting to know about their lives and their interests. Family meant everything to my mom. She grew up in a large, close, extended clan, and we grew up learning that you dropped everything for family. No matter how much we can annoy each other at times, Mom made sure we learned that we should always have each other's back. Our family began in the story of her relationship with our father. To the 3 of us, our parents' meet cute was the height of romance. In Mom's obituary, our dad wrote the story this way. Our parents met in Boston shortly after my mom moved there in 1958. He was attending 2 weeks of Army Reserve training at nearby Fort Devens with a Buffalo, New York Reserve unit. A mutual friend who said she might be going to Boston had given him Mom's telephone number and address as a contact. And on that Saturday morning, the phone was out of order and Mom was waiting for a repairman to show up. Neither the friend nor the repairman ever arrived. Her future husband, unable to reach her by phone and with nothing to do on a half-deserted army post, showed up instead. They spent the day together and that evening and went out for dinner at Durgan Park, a restaurant that used to be around the corner from Faneuil Hall. We heard the story so many times we could tell you what they ate for dinner. And by the time Dad returned to Buffalo, they each knew that they would get married. And they celebrated their 63rd wedding anniversary this past November. But true love stories are not anchored in first dates, no matter how coincidental, nor bear much resemblance to movies from Hollywood. True love stories, like the one our parents were lucky enough to enjoy, are anchored in the day-to-day, the challenging, and the mundane. They take courage and effort, persistence and patience. They take a lot of laughter, which our parents shared easily. Our father's love and respect for Mom was always evident. He cared for her, worried about her, and ensured that she had what she needed. Their intimacy with one another was always on display. They showed us how to compromise, make decisions together, and how to truly put the person you love first. It was clear that they cared about one another's happiness and most often put the others ahead of their own. Caring for Dad was really central to my mother's life. Dad was the king. Even Bob the prince couldn't compete. Mom looked after his every need. She did that for all of us. We grew up in a house where none of us learned how to do our own laundry until we left for college. But we do still marvel that in the 63 years together, our dad never learned to even cook his own eggs. Mom's identity was indistinguishable from her care for our father. She adored him and shaped her life around their marriage. And even as we were thinking about how to talk about Mom, it was really hard to separate out talking about Dad. Almost every photograph we have of Mom has Dad in it. Our mom lived her life on her own terms, up to the very end. About 2 days before she passed, Bob went to the hospital to visit her. We'd had a discussion about how we really needed to get Mom to get some help in the home, and Bob's like, we can't let her drive the bus anymore, okay? We're just gonna have to make this happen. And so he took on the job of trying to get her to accept a little help in the home. I was getting ready to go to the hospital that day, and I got a text from Bob, and it read, Beth, I just went 3 rounds with Mom about getting help into the house. Don't bother coming to the hospital. I had to smother her with a pillow. She was living life on her own terms, and no one, not even her children, were going to get in that way. We're grieving that Mom is gone. She was such a central and strong presence in each of our lives that we're still waiting for the phone to ring, the text message to come in, or see her walk through the door. But we also consider ourselves incredibly fortunate and incredibly blessed to have had her in our lives for so long. All 3 of us, as well as our families, are just incredibly grateful. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to us.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for a magnificent and beautiful and moving tribute to your beloved mother, the collective work of your siblings and yourself. Suggest that you make copies for each one of your children for future references. Into this sacred place of ours, we come as we're drawn together by this deep sense of kinship in the deep sorrow that we feel at this moment, sharing this great loss. We all become a community of fellow mourners because of the love, affection, genuine love, cherished towards our dear friend, Audrey Marcus. This synagogue, this house of God, by its very nature, bids us to look above and to look beyond. To look above in reverent trust in the divine wisdom, and to look beyond with faith in the soul's destiny after it has been released from the flesh. Let us also derive strength from the very spirit of our dear departed. Hers was a nature that was ever showing stamina all the time. Strong, brave was she amidst all chances and changes of life. A friend sent a card to the family describing what Audrey was all about. It reads, "Your mother was formidable, not in a scary way, just strong." Audrey was that oldest child with that inner strength to take care of others, a force of nature. As we heard, she lived on her own terms. She was not willing to let other people decide how she will live her life. Last night, Lily over the phone said she was staunchly independent. She had a very hard time sitting down doing nothing. And we heard from Michelle, she was the Energizer bunny. And we heard that also from Elizabeth. Always knowing what to do and how to do it. I've been told that her father of blessed memory was involved on the rescue of the Sifrei Torah from Temple Bethel in the old building in Park Avenue after the fire. We heard from Elizabeth how beautifully they met. It didn't take them much to decide that they were born for each other and they belonged to one another. The family moved to Syracuse in the 70s, building life with the children, making sure that they got what they needed. Audrey was active in the DeWitt PTA and served as its president. She volunteered many years in the Food Bank of Central New York, and she served on the board of directors of the Limestone Hill Omer Homes Association. She was the real estate agent in her region and worked there for more than 20 years. She took charge of everything at home. She made sure that there was fresh flowers every week because a house without fresh flowers is not a home. And she really did everything. She went to the activities of her children, plays, choral rehearsal, youth groups. Every meal was made by her, and the dishes were cleaned by her. The family came together for dinner every night. And after that, William will give children their bath and read them stories. But the dinner, the table, was a great time for discussion, for being engaged with the parents, to argue with one another. A lot of noise, and believe it or not, Audrey was quiet. She was happy to see everyone around the table enjoying the meal. It was that chicken that she cooked a lot of times. Not the same chicken, but always following a recipe. And she had about 6 or 7 different kinds of meals that she cooked because, after all, it was her kitchen. She stayed involved with her children after they left for college. Elizabeth, Karen, and Bob enjoyed calling back home and enjoyed that their friends became very close with their parents. And that was because of the interaction, the traction, the questioning that they always had for their best friends. They love engaging them in conversation. Audrey was genuinely interested in the friends. She was so interested that after many years, she will ask Karen, "Hey, what about those old boyfriends that you had? What happened to their lives?" She decided to become a real estate agent, I was told, by watching TV, and all of a sudden decided, oh, I should do something with my life. She wasn't so sure at the beginning, but she became the realtor that she became, strong and good at it. Excellent memory, great people skills, I've been told that she terrorized the car salespeople because she will go into the dealership and they'll say, well, that's not what I want. And she will walk out, she will get phone calls, come back, etc. She negotiated very, very well. And she instructed her children out in college to only call on Sunday after 11 p.m. because the collect calls were cheaper at that time. The children and the grandchildren brought fulfillment into her life. Her friends from school when she was young brought happiness to her, and they gather very often for so many years. The children remember, Mom was the person you went when you had a people's problem or emotional issue. For the other problems, you went to Dad. Because there was a clear division of labor between Audrey and William. Audrey was the caretaker. She took care of everybody. And we heard, she carried also the tsuris of everyone with her. She came home every day, as we heard, to serve lunch for William. William had to eat well, and that was her concern. And if Karen flew anywhere, Karen had to text her mother, even until recently, to tell her where she was. And Elizabeth, who took a year off from college, or the gap year that we call it, and went to Israel and Europe, had to find that phone, public phone, and call back home to report how she was. No matter how difficult it was to find a paid phone in Europe. Audrey taught her children the quality of a spirit to be a caretaker, and they have become, each one of them, to their own family and friends. Audrey never complained. We could say that she was an optimist, maybe, because it was difficult for her to deal with the negative. According to Karen and Bob, Mom wanted to help solve the problems, but she didn't want to deal with pain. Emotional discomfort was difficult and uncomfortable for her, so she was there to assist you. Somehow she protected herself from the feelings of negativity that perhaps she experienced when she was a child, and she didn't want to dwell in the negative. And as a result, she became out positive, and she presented herself as being optimistic. Audrey had a very strong Jewish identity. Judaism was central to her. It was part of her identity. She had Jewish friends. She went to Jewish synagogues, of course, and she sent her kids to Hebrew school and to Jewish camps. We also knew from her personality when any of the children had crossed that line. But she didn't say to you, you did it, you shouldn't have done it. She will just inquire with her typical questions. How is it done? Is that how it's done? I have never seen it done that way. That was a way to say to you, I think you have done it wrong and you need to change. She would have liked to be remembered as a loving grandmother, and she was. Because in preparation for Hanukkah, she will take weeks to prepare what to send to each one of you, as Maya told us last night. She came to recitals, and she was happy when she saw that you had fulfilled your dreams. In retirement, and that was hard for her, she and William divided the year between Syracuse and Sarasota. She loved spending time with her friends and going to the theater, the symphony orchestra. As with her, she enjoyed playing mahjong because she was willing to win and win only. She is survived by her beloved family, her husband William, her children Elizabeth and Ira, Karen, Bob and Michelle, and her grandchildren, Maya, Lillian, Vivian, Nathan, and their sister and brother-in-law, Caroline and Roger Friedlander, as well as many nieces and nephews. Audrey turned 90 this year, and the family was very happy for her, and there was a beautiful family celebration. She made Michelle her favorite egg salad. And the family got together, and when she was inquired about her age, to doctors and to friends and family, she said that she would have liked to live until 100. Obviously, she didn't want to contemplate the possibility of dying because she wanted to live on her own terms. At the end, things were resolved, and she realized that she has done her work. She perceived that William will be okay, and the rest of the family as well. And she moved on to the Olam Ha'emet, the Olam Haba, the world of truth. And now, as we say the final words of parting, we turn to God. We turn to God to give us those higher thoughts and feelings which will lift us above this mere grief and make our sorrow a sorrow with an upward look. A sorrow that is not happiness, but a sorrow that we can understand, comprehend, and move on, perhaps she would have wanted us to do. We still pray that God Almighty will enable everyone who mourn her passing to begin to fill that void in their hearts. It will not be filled completely, but we pray that sweet and sacred memories will help you find solace. We cannot but feel, even in the midst of bereavement, a sense of gladness, a sense of gratitude for the blessings that have remained because of her, because she was your mother, your wife, your sister, your grandmother, and your friend. So may all who are here, may all who were family and associates be stirred and challenged to carry on her good legacy and to serve their fellow human being with love, with care, with concern, and to help community to renew a sense of devotion and consecration to the good things of life. May the soul of Hannah, Leah, Bat Ze'ev, Verachel be bound up in the bonds of life eternal. And let us say all together, Amen. Please rise for the memorial prayer. El male rachamim shochen bamromim אמצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים לנשמת חנה לאה בת זאב ורחל שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה ענה בעל הרחמים אסתיריה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the soul of Audrey T. Marcus, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say all together,